Hello and welcome to the TRBusiness video channel. I'm here with Julián Díaz, CEO of Dufry. Thank you very much for talking to us today.
Thank you for the opportunity again.
It's
pleasure.
It's fantastic. I want to first start with some evaluation of the performance last year. The company registered around $8.7 billion, depending on the currency exchange, in revenue, up approximately 7%, and that was driven by organic growth, improved cash generation, and reduced net debt. So that was a triple-pronged approach from Dufry. And, you know, considering that that was the approach which, I guess, paid off last year, and there was a similar growth, I understand, in the first half of this year. That same approach, is that going to continue? You know, do you hope to carry to 7% growth perhaps at the end of this year?
Yes, last year was an important year for us. It was the first year of full consolidation of the two acquired companies, Nuance and World Duty Free. And the performance was in general very positive worldwide, but the main driver was in South America. South America for us last year, especially Brazil, Argentina, Chile, were the drivers of the growth with above the double-digit growth, 10.5 or close to 11, sorry, organic growth. Then the other divisions performed all more or less the same, around 6%, 6.5%. Compared obviously with previous year, 2016, was a significant improvement. During the first quarter of 2018, what we have seen is a very similar performance in all the divisions, including South America. And during the second quarter, as we already reported in the stock exchange, the situation changed and started a slowdown, basically due to the emerging market currency volatilities. In this case, the emerging market currency volatilities, in our case, in Dufry's case, is more based in South America. That has two things. One, obviously, is the volatility and the devaluation of the currencies impacting the perception of value. But as I repeat many times, this is a temporary event, and it's obviously taking as far as the domestic market is importing merchandise at the same level of currency, the value is recovered again. And the second part is that last year, as I said, South America had a record year for us. For the rest of the divisions, we are very pleased and satisfied with the performance. During the first 6 months of 2018, we have also reported the record year in generation of free cash flow and equity free cash flow, and in terms of sales, it has been the same. From now on, and I think this is an interesting part of the year, because the third quarter is the most important quarter for us, the impact of the devaluation of the currencies in South America will obviously impact our growth. I cannot disclose the information specifically because we have not reported to the market. But in terms of the last quarter, that is also a significant quarter for us, I have seen a good performance so far. Obviously, we are talking about a not very long period of time, but we have opened important operations like MTR in Hong Kong, performing very well, Perth in Australia, and in the process to open new operations in Boston Logan in the US and also in Midway in Chicago. With these new operations plus the recovery of the currencies that I am visualizing now and yesterday was confirmed, I think I am obviously looking at the last quarter in a different way than the rest of the year.
You mentioned South America there, obviously Brazil at the very core of that, with elections due. How do you feel like that's going to reflect on the trading environment and, of course, your business? We
have been in Brazil, operating in Brazil for many years. And every electoral year, the behavior is more or less the same. It's a pattern. Right? During the first part of the year, normally the performance is similar to previous year. As soon as you get to the point that the electoral campaign is starting, the situation is deteriorating. And deteriorating in the sense that it's a devaluation of the Brazilian real, and as a consequence, depending on the valuation, sometimes impacting the volume of sales temporarily. What is also happening is after the elections and after the decision of obviously the Brazilians, normally the situation normalizes very quickly also. In this case, I hope that during the next 30 days the situation will be clear, and the elections will be on next Sunday. I think October 28th is the second round, just in case in the first round is not solved. And after that, our forecast is that if everything is as we expect, the situation will normalize during the next 2 or 3 months.
Moving back to financial performance, Dufry released information that strong organic growth again continued to drive sales turnover to 4.1 billion in the first half. Obviously, new concessions had a new part to play in that. Does the company hope to continue winning new business in the final quarter of this year and in 2019?
Yes, in our plans are always as a reference point for every year a significant increase in terms of new concessions. New concessions for us, when we talk about new concessions, there are 2 parts here. Is gross open space less the space we close down. The contribution with the size we have today of new spaces is between 2 and 3% of the total business per year, and this is still the target for the years to come. I think in terms of the opportunities we have, in terms of the research that we have done during the next 2 or 3 years, this is something that could be achievable.
And on the wish list for new business, are we looking in the Asia-Pacific region? I know that you're cautious of the first tier airports, for instance, but the second tier is interesting.
Yeah, I have been repeating since several years ago that the main target for our company is to develop the business in Asia. All the divisions, we have 5 divisions operating today. Divisions 1, 2, 4 and 5 are contributing to the business between 20 and 22% of the business. And Division 3, that is especially, obviously, the territory we are talking about, is Asia, Middle East to Australia, including Far East, is contributing 14% of the business. The intention is to reach this equilibrium between the different divisions in order to mitigate the risk to be allocated to the different divisions and territories in 20% of the business in each of the divisions. In this case, we are far, obviously, still far of reaching this level in Asia. As a consequence, there are 2 aspects. One is the growth that will be delivered due to the number of passengers, and the second one is the equilibrium and diversification of risk of the different divisions. The answer is we will try to allocate capital for growth in Asia. Within the next 2 or 3 years, our intention is to reach this level of 20%, and this means that we need to add between 500 and 800 million in sales in this period of time in the Division 3, that is Asia.
One of the aspects which makes this more difficult to win new business is the closed markets, obviously, and these are some of the markets that are biggest in duty-free and travel retail. So there is, how do you plan on getting into those markets or pushing further into them?
Well, it's obvious that when we identify Asia as a territory, is not really true. There are many Asias, and depending on the legislations, depending on the control of obviously the political aspects, depending on the type of assets that are there, you need to implement a strategy different than in the other ones. We have been for a long time, and today we are present. We are operating in 14 countries in Asia, probably more than any other company in the world. Small operations, second-tier airports, downtown shops with captive audience is a model, and sales on board cruise lines is a model that has been so far really representing what our mentality is, financial discipline. And this financial discipline is valid, is still valid. We will be, obviously, as it's obvious, very concerned about the performance of each operation, new operation, but we need also at the same time to accelerate the growth. To accelerate the growth can be done in 2 different ways, or participating in big operations, or to do transactions or acquisitions. I think it's important because we have been historically a company combining both things, organic growth plus acquisitions. We have not done any acquisition so far in Asia, and I think this is the time to do an acquisition, obviously depending on the financial conditions and many other things, opportunistic acquisition. And if you think about the development of Dufry, I think the company should allocate capital in acquisitions in Asia.
And of course, the same is happening with your peers in Asia, where they're trying to do the same, but going the other way. Obviously, it's been well reported that they're having talks with many of the operators, one being in the Americas. So there's this cross happening in the world at the moment. There's yourselves and the other top 10 operators are trying to expand overseas, and it's just a case of, I guess, who's going to get to those other regions first. But through acquisition, as you say, is definitely the way forward, as these companies in Asia have proclaimed as well, such as Lotte. They have ambitions to be the #1, and they're pleased to say that acquisitions is a way that they will do the same.
Yes, it is obviously. I think I respect obviously all the points of view. For me, the target is not to be the #1; it's to be the most profitable. We are the #1. It's fine, but this #1 that we are should contribute to the value of the company. And I think so far we have been able to really consolidate important operations worldwide. And I think we have created with the vendors and with the airport authorities and with other stakeholders a solid base for continuing with the growth. The expansion in Asia is going to be obviously difficult, like it was in South America, or like it was in North America, or like it was in Africa. We have had this experience. We have acquired 14 companies over the past 14 years, and the acquisitions were not by chance, were intentionally prepare and establish in territories that could generate critical mass for continuing with the growth. In this case, Asia is a very difficult, obviously, territory. I agree. It's not going to be easy, I agree, but we are here because obviously we have been in the past successful and we are trying to be successful in the future. But there is not a formula. You know, there is a combination of know-how, combination of luck, combination of efforts, and I think Dufry has been able over the past years to show up that this combination has been more positive than negative. That's the ideal word for us.
I would agree with you there. I think we'll leave it there, and that's all for now, but we'll be back soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.